The way that we're going to do that is you guys can all add questions to the chat. I have my minions on the side that'll sort and order those for me. And then after the 30 minutes is up, I'll kind of like go to the list and just start from the top, and we'll fire those at Kevon and see if we can stump him. By the way, all this is being recorded. So don't say or do anything that you don't want to be like live on the internet forever. And yeah, so that's it for the logistics. I guess we'll just jump right in. I'll give a very quick, brief intro of myself. So I work at Possible Future. My role, I basically am the no-code guru there. So I look for opportunities to use no-code tools to build digital products. On the side, I'm also, I guess I would call a budding indie hacker with a few side projects also involving no code. That's kind of how I met Kevon. Our circles kind of overlapped via Richard, via Twitter. And so here we are. Excited to be having this chat with you, man. Do you want to introduce yourself real quick, and then we'll kind of dive into the details of your background?
Yeah, sure. So my name is Kevon. I'm a new dad. I have a baby, 3 months old. So I'm actually sitting in Hong Kong right now. I grew up here, but I studied in the States for 7 years and then moved to Singapore and then moved back to Hong Kong. So I guess I started all this about 5-6 months ago. Like I used to run a startup, venture-backed startup, but then I just learned about the beauty of the internet. I started on Twitter, and I realized I talk to people on Twitter more than people in real life now. I don't even meet people in Hong Kong. I just meet people on Twitter. So it's kind of my new life. So I'm happy here to share more with you guys.
Awesome. Yeah, I think that's a little bit like all of us here. Spend a lot of time on Twitter these days. Mm-hmm. I guess we could just jump right in. I think do you want to talk a little bit more about your VC-backed startup phase of life and tell us about Toasty, like what happened there? Yeah. Like how did that transition over to indie building?
Yeah, sure. So for me, I have, ever since graduated from college, 2012, I've always been wanting to do tech and startup. It is, I guess I'm just brainwashed by the media to do it. So finally, in the last 2 years, I got my chance. So I started a tech startup, and it's a SaaS product. Don't ask me what idea, because we pivoted a few times. So I can't, it's not just one idea, it's multiple ideas. But I was able to raise some angel money. And what happened was with money, it is actually not a good thing. Now I reflected back, with money, I immediately went out to build a team. So I have a CTO, head of product, and then engineers, designers. I was having like 6 to 8 people team at that point. And we jumped with people next to you. I jumped into building a product really fast. So what happened was we didn't really understand the pain point of the user that well. And because of COVID, we had to pivot our whole product to the virtual space, which eventually became this video meeting platform, but with a lot of engagement features that you can use to run an event like this. Instead of just talking, there's like cart activities, polling that you can pull in right here. But around October last year, I just made the decision that, hey, we're burning a ton of cash. We're not seeing the growth trajectory that we wanted. Why kept doing this? This doesn't make sense. So I just pitched to my investor that, hey, maybe it's time to shut down. And yeah, we did it. And then for me, because I have a new baby coming up, I just took some time back and decided, hey, maybe I don't know what to do. Maybe I'll just start creating content online, sharing all the failures, struggles, all the lesson learned. So I kept producing blog posts 1 per week to share all these lessons. And little do I know, it started to grow my Twitter account. So then I figured out I wanted to go on this indie path, because I'm able to be more cautious about where I spend my time, because I don't have investor anymore. So I cannot be spoiled and go hire people. I have to like really plan out my strategy. So that was kind of my transition phase end of last year.
Okay, gotcha. And before that, had you done content creation before, or was that kind of like your first like foray into that space?
So when I was running Toasty, that's the startup name, I was the only person on the growth and marketing side as
Okay.
the CEO. So the head of product, CTO, and all the team, they're building the product. So it was quite unhealthy, like one person doing marketing and everyone else, like six people on product side. So I've always been working on like social media content, but not the same style. You know, when you have money, you're always thinking about the fastest way to grow. Like, oh, I'm gonna play some ad money. I'm gonna hire a writer to churn out blog posts. It's not very conscious, but now it's like, wow, every blog post is really my story, life story. Yeah.
For sure. And I'm curious, like when you started doing this, weekly blog post thing,
Uh-huh.
what was it like? Had you already discovered Build in Public, or did you kind of discover that later and was like, oh shit, like actually what I was doing was that? Like how'd you find or discover Build in Public?
Oh, that's a good question because now I'm like all about building in public.
Yeah,
So
exactly.
how I discover it, when I was first like I mean being active on running my own website. So it was there all the time, but I never write on it.
Mhm.
I discovered this guy called Nate Ellison. How many of you have heard of Nate Ellison? Okay, okay, Richard. So he's a great person and he shared a lot of deep thoughts on his website. So he has this blog post about like how to start a great blog. So I read that and what he talks about is like, don't worry about finding a niche for your blog. Just write things that you're curious about, that you have some knowledge and people are interested in reading. So after I read that, I'm like, oh, well, the only thing I can share is all my failure lessons from Toasty. So let's just write that. And then I think I did that for like about 4 weeks. And then I was like, huh, no one is coming to my website. So how do I get my name out? Because everything I've worked in my career has been with the company. So what I realized is that now I'm by myself. I had nothing. No one knows me online. I have no credibility. So how do I build that? So what I did was I was planning to create like a big piece of content because I know people love content. People like to learn, but I had no idea what I want to write about. So I was searching all these buzzwords like no code, micro SaaS, and then I got building in public, and then I was listing them down, and I was like, which one should I write about? And no code seems like a big trend, but there's already a lot of people talking about it. But building in public, I someone has a lot of echo from their mic.
Yeah, can everyone mute themselves?
Okay, so what I found out about building in public is that a lot of people are talking about it on Twitter, on indie hackers, but somehow if you just Google it, there's no like there are like 3 4 blog posts that you can read and that's it. So I was like,
Mhm.
interesting. Well, and then I go to Google Ads keyword research. No one is searching for building in public, like 10 per month in the US, but I didn't care. I thought I spotted something that people need but it's not there, so I decided to just do it. But
Mhm.
the other thing that I wanted to do it is I realized building in public is about transparency, authenticity, and it's really me. Like I've been really open about myself. I like to talk about failures, so I thought it would be a really fun topic to write about. So that's how I discovered it.
For sure. No, that's really interesting. Um, that's super interesting. So it was kind of like a combination of finding like the good opportunity and like knowing that you had been doing that. That's the stuff you like. And also like you kind of had this experience to know that you could create something that was like meaningful and valuable to people.
Yeah, so it's a bit of
Nice.
both. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, totally. Um, and so kind of did you like try to validate that initial idea that you had before kind of like jumping into the research? Because I know you spent like a month or two like doing the research to actually create
Mm-hmm.
this
Mm-hmm.
this document. So let me just give everyone the context. So
Mm.
Kevon created this like really awesome like definitive guide on building in public. I think maybe Richard, you can share it in the chat here for one. I highly recommend if this subject interests you to go take a look. And so he spent about, I think it was like 2 months doing the research, published this. It got like a lot of buzz. Like pretty much everyone in this community knows about it now. I think you're like the top Google list, Google rank, right? For those keywords.
Mm-hmm.
And so anyways, that's a document that we're talking about. um, so yeah, I guess back to my question, like, what was like the validation process?
Yeah. So honestly, I didn't validate too much because
Yeah.
as I said, I think it's a little bit of gut feeling. Like I already spotted a trend, but there's no helpful resources. I think that's a really strong starting point.
Hmm.
Um, but I think the I didn't really like interview people for validation, but I use building in public as a way to slowly build up the momentum. So the way I did it was the day I decided to do it, I didn't just spend hours and hours writing it and then launch it on Twitter. That would
Hmm.
be that would be a very high rate of failure.
Yeah.
But I just tweet that I'm going to write about this guy, um, and let people know that I'm going to start. And I even created like I think 4 tweet thread, just updating people where I am, like on my research process, um, what chapters they are going to be, what help I need from people. And as you can imagine, I was tweeting for a whole month or a month and a half before the guy was actually launched. So that built up a lot of momentum. And I guess
Mm.
from those reactions from the tweet, that's a kind of validation. So that's the beauty of building in public is you are constantly improving your product before it's even out. So that's the
Yeah.
way I approached it. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. And you actually even like continue doing this as you release like chapter, but kind of, I think you released the first half first, and then like
Yeah.
as you were still writing the rest. Um,
Yeah. So this is so I've been running like venture back startup, right? So we're always like, oh, build something big and then push it out, and then oh, how come no one is like going to our website? So now
yeah.
I learned a little lesson, which is I never launch the full product. I chop it up into small pieces, even for my other products. So as you said, I chopped this guide into 2 parts. And for part 1, I look for early readers who want that early access, but they're also willing to give feedback. So on one side, I already get early readers who are the best people for testimonials. And second of all, I get tons of feedback to improve my writing. And some of them even give me like grammar feedback. So
Yeah.
which is awesome. Like the guide is so good because of all these people around me. So it's not like I shouldn't take all the credits. So that's how I launch my products nowadays. It's always like a lot of behind the scene, yeah, that people don't
For
see.
sure. For
Mm.
sure. And I guess that's like another big benefit of sharing everything online is you kind of like people will engage with it and offer even to help. Like I've seen that many times on Twitter where like you see these partnerships cropping up and it's just because people are sharing stuff and people are reaching out to like help each other. And so that's
Yeah.
cool. I'm curious what it was like going from, I imagine like for Toasty, you were like had a
Uh-huh.
salary, you were like paid,
Yeah.
going from that to walking away from that and doing this thing, which didn't really have like a clear, doesn't have like a clear monetization path.
Yeah.
Um, what what can you tell us a bit about that?
um I guess it's just a very different life. Back then, I had a salary, I was running the team, but I was spending so much time with the investors. Um, I go to a lot of VC meetings, even though we're not ready for it, but we just have to meet more and more investors. And I spend so much time there. But deep down, I know I'm kind of like a product person. I like to build. I like to like I'm not really the unicorn type of person. So
Yeah.
so it's a very different style. But now I'm like every day I wake up, I have my own to-do list, and I know that everything on that to-do list is moving the needle for my bigger plan. So
Yeah.
the sense of fulfillment is so much stronger now. But of
Yeah.
course, the downside is what you mentioned. Like I'm new to this, so I still don't have like it, I still don't make a lot of money online. Um, but I think it's okay. Like the way I see it is every time you make a huge transition in your life or career, there's like a at least 6 months period where you're just building up the foundation. And I strongly believe if you cannot give yourself that 6 months, you're not going to make a nice transition. You're going to go back to whatever you're doing before. So I just give myself this time, and yeah, hope that I'll figure out this year.
Yeah, for sure. No, that's connected to the next group of questions we had, which is around kind of
Uh-huh.
what's your like ultimate goal, or like what is this grand plan for you?
uh, ultimate goal, I think, used to be, I talked about like how the media brainwash us to think that there's only one way to run companies, to do startups, especially in tech. So before it was like, oh, I want to be one of those CEOs who are like showing up on different TechCrunch or whatever media. Now, after last year, maybe COVID play a big part in this transition. Like I just I just think I want to work for myself, like a bootstrap way, because I work much better when I'm able to make my own conscious choice instead of pleasing people around me. I think some people are really good at. I think maybe sales and business development people are really good at doing that, like pleasing every stakeholder that are around them.
Mm,
I I was giving that a try, but I realized I'm just really not that type of person. So I think for me, success would be working for myself.
mm.
The second big realization is I don't know how many people actually have a job here, or is everyone running their own business? So maybe everyone is running their own business. Uh,
I have a
I
job.
had a, okay. End of last year, when I stepped down from my CEO founder role, I was actually thinking back. I was thinking about getting a job in a tech company. But then one day I was reading something and I had this thought: if I go back to finding a job, I'm basically running in this like running wheel that the mice usually run in, because this is what happens. You get a job, you do a lot of great stuff, and then you leave the company, and then you have nothing left because everything belongs to the company, and you're not even building your personal brand. And then you have to pitch yourself for a second job, and then you
Yeah.
just keep like working for people, and then it's a forever loop. So when I think about how I want to live my life, I want sustainability. I want things that are accumulating every single day. So when I was exposed to this, like building your personal brand, blogging, do a lot of writing, I sort of imagine, wow, I'm 31 years old this year. If I can write for the next 30 years, I'll have 30 years of content online that are all under my name. That would be really cool. It's like everything is piling up. So I really want that. And so sustainability is a key. And the last thing would be just freedom.
Yeah.
Like when I was running the startup, you might think that as a founder and CEO, I had a lot of freedom. Yes, I do. I can do whatever I want. I can just like take a nap and no one would ask me for that. But it's still like you have to manage all these people. Every day you come in, daily stand up 9 a.m. and you have to manage them. But now I
Yeah.
just kind of want my own freedom. Like if I want to take my kid to Disneyland on a Wednesday, I would not feel bad about that.
Yeah.
So, so these are the stuff that I want uh,
Yeah.
going forward.
For sure.
Yeah.
No, it's not, yeah, for sure. And I know you have a couple, at least a couple things going on right now because I'm part of
Huh?
the public lab community. Do you want to talk about a little bit like what the things you have going on right now, like with the community, the making Twitter friends course, like what's the, yeah, maybe just explain like what you're doing right now and like how those fit into this
Sure.
bigger puzzle.
Yeah. So I used to be the guy who's like brainstorming, doing a lot of brainstorming in my own head. And then I thought, oh, I have this cool way of solving people's problem, like the typical first time founder, right? But now I'm like, I'm just following the breadcrumbs of people, like what I'm just observing what people need and then building things that would satisfy that need. So, for example, my whole online career started because I write that 10,000 words building in public guide. And ever since then, that was fab. It's just 2 months ago. So
Yeah, it's crazy.
within this 2 months, like a lot of people around me are all just getting started about building in public. And oftentimes I'll help them on forums and stuff, but I just kind of see a lot of them need a better support system. So a very natural move for me next is to create this safe space for them to support each other and to get my support as well. So that's why I created this paid private community. I don't know how this will play out. I'm being very honest that it's the first time that I run such a community and I'm learning as I go. So Dennis, you would know because you're like an early member. Um, but the way I see it is that as a content creator, like a indie builder, you it's different from running a tech product where you can just have one product and you can keep growing your MRR that way. For people like me, it's better to have like a few different products that are all interconnected and they all have a way of like monetizing so that when you talk about one thing, it's like a growth loop. They can all feed into
Yeah.
each other. And that's how you sustain your life. Yeah, so that's how I think about it. Maybe in the future, I'll be working on courses, I don't know, cohort kind of courses or video courses. But that seems like the natural way of kind of expanding my help to people.
Yeah, totally. Um, cool. Let's talk a bit more about building in public.
Sure.
Why don't we? Cool. Like for you, how do you approach building in public in like a strategic manner? So I've read the guide. I think it does a really good job at like kind of laying out the guidelines. I'm curious how you like implement that in practice, or like how do you organize and structure uh, the strategy, I guess.
Yeah. I think the first thing is I I feel that a lot of people jumping into building in public, they are doing it because it's a trend. I don't think a lot of
Mhm.
people fully understand how this could really help your work. So
Yeah.
there are two groups of people. One is you build in public because you want the support around you, you want the accountability. I like that, but that's not the most important thing for me. For me, building in public is more about building a transparent brand about yourself and use it like a audience building or marketing channel. So when you look at it this way, then obviously building in public can be very strategic because you're talking to your target audience. So it's easier for me because I'm flipping the switch. I have the audience first and I'm trying to satisfy their needs. So obviously I'm talking to the right people. But if your product targets to like education, teachers, then it's harder for you to just do this, but you have to like find a teacher first and be in front of them and build in public there. So um, that's the way I look at it. So if you look at it this way, each a lot of people feel that building in public is like extra work on top of what they're
Mhm.
already building. But if you look at it this way, this is just a marketing strategy to use the behind the scenes, use your learnings to refresh people's mind about what you're building. And then they're learning about how you're building it, and somehow they're interested in what you're building. So it has to have that connection. Like I like a lot of people just building in public for the sake of building in public, then I think they will give up very soon because they don't see
Mhm.
the outcomes from this effort. And it's, to be honest, is a very heavy type of things. You have tons of things to write. So just be clear what your goal is for building in public.
For sure. Yeah, you talk a lot about that in the guide also, which is like if you're not doing it for the right reason and you're not like patient with it, you'll kind of give up at the very beginning, right? Because like at the beginning, you don't actually get that much traction, you don't get that much results. And
Yeah.
it's like you need to be consistent and like improve and like stick with it in order to actually like see the results that you're
Yeah.
talking about.
Yeah.
So
The other thing is, I think the other thing is a lot of people seem to think building in public is a very daily kind of task.
yeah,
Oh, I have to tweet every day about my learnings today. I really don't think so. Like building in public is just a mindset. I have seen people who write one blog post a month, but they are so reflective. They're so open about their learnings that month. And that is a great building in public example. And it's clear that they're not using this blog post to kind of do user acquisition, do marketing, right? But in contrary, they're using that to just like establish a transparent brand about themselves. So whatever they're doing, when people look at this founder's blog, they're like, oh, this person has a great personality, so open about everything. Maybe when I compare these two products, I want to try this product with a very transparent founder. So once a month is also okay. So I don't want people to overwhelm themselves thinking they need to do it all the time.
yeah, for sure. And
Yeah.
what's kind of like the as far as yourself goes,
Uh-huh.
what's kind of the cadence you try to maintain, or like how do you like plan out your posts? Like when you get ideas, you just like write them down and you have like a pipeline. Like how do you actually approach the thing like systematically or not? I have no idea.
Yeah, definitely there's a system because I'm writing a lot and it's so hard. It takes up so much time. Like I spend hours each week to write. My system would be, so when I started, I didn't have a system. And I would just sit down and be like, okay, today I'm gonna spend 3 hours writing this article. And you know what
Yeah.
happened? Nothing came out. So I developed a system where I'm using Notion. I guess I'm not the biggest fan because it's kind of glitchy, but I'm using it anyway. So I have a page on Notion for newsletter idea and article ideas. So throughout the week, because ideas come at random times, right? You're running, when you're taking care of your baby, the ideas just come. So when it comes, I would write it down right away on that page, and I don't care about expanding it or whatever. Just jot down the initial idea. So it becomes your idea creation spot. And
Yeah.
then early in the week, I would just look at that place and I'll pick out, okay, what makes sense for me to share with my audience that week. And I'll pick out one topic and I would outline the whole thing in bullet points. So this is like a 20, 30 minutes exercise where I just sit down, expand all the talking points I want to do. And then I leave it there. And then I come back in a day or two and I allocate myself maybe 45 minutes, an hour to fully expand that outline to a full article. And then I leave it there again. And then
Mm.
around the end of the week, before it goes out, I sit down again and now I'm fixing all the grammars, I'm cutting words. So you can see I have a 4-step uh, content production way to
Yeah.
public, and it's very time consuming, but because it's one of my main audience building marketing tactics, so it's worth it for me.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Yeah, I'll just remind the participants, like feel free to leave questions in here. So we'll continue talking for about 10 more minutes, but please leave questions in the chat and we'll address them at the end here. Um, so one part that you mentioned earlier is like this crafting a personality, like crafting a personal brand image,
Yeah.
and telling a compelling story that people like want to follow, want to engage with. How would you describe yours, and how did you go about like figuring out what that is? Like, what is your identity, like your brand?
This is like an exercise that span across a few months.
Yeah.
Initially, around November last year, I had no idea. Again, that guy Nate Ellison, I encourage everyone to check him out. He's like my uh, what's the word? He's basically the person who got me started in all this. I don't know him, but I consume all his content. So basically, I didn't care about what my identity was. It's something that you cannot just create and name it for yourself. So what I did was I was just writing, I was just tweeting, making friends on Twitter as myself. Like I'm not pretending to be someone else. Like I love to use LOL, I love to use emoji, I love to joke around on Twitter. I'll just do it. I don't care about how people see me. And then I think every month or so, I would sit down and then I'll grab a piece of paper and then I'll start drawing those like circles and think like, oh, Kevon, like you've written so much in the last month. What did you write about? So I start writing, it's about growing Twitter. Oh, these few articles are about like user interviews. These few articles are about personal branding. So it's the trends start to emerge, and I can see, these are the stuff that I care about. So clearly, this is my positioning. This is my brand. So I didn't just brainstorm it out. I take actions and then I summarize and make it my personal brand. And if you go to my Twitter, I have that little triangle up top that kind of summarize how I look at all my work, because I want people to see my personal brand as a person who is not like who doesn't have that little arrow and point to your follow button and say, hey, please follow me. I don't like that. I want people to pay attention to my words, because eventually I think that's the best way to build connection with people.
Yeah. I have a good one here. It's a bit a different subject, but well, it's still on build in public.
Sure.
So when should you not build in public? So I think we've talked a lot about like, okay, why but build in public can be good.
Yeah.
When are the situations where you should not build in public?
First thing, I think I have brought up a few misconceptions about building in public so far. There's one more, which is, it seems like a lot of people think building in public means you have to be 100% transparent about everything you do, about your revenue, about your profit, about your personal life. The answer is no. You don't have to be 100% transparent. Like, you have to be honest. You're not making up lies, but you can choose what to share. So for example, one example I can think of is if you are sharing stories and struggles that would actually destroy your brand, your image, then why do you want to share that? For example, you can see, if you go on Twitter, you can see a lot of building in public posts. It's always like a failure, and then somehow there's a success that comes after the failure. So it's a great story, right? You learn something from it, and people can learn from you as well. But if you're just sharing, oh, I made this stupid mistake and I lose a customer, what good is that going to do to your brand? So in that case, I wouldn't share it. So like, for example, another way would be if you run a startup and you fire someone just for fun, why would you share that? Like, yeah. So the point here is you have to define your line, how much you want to share, and you don't have to go over that line. So you're always in your comfortable zone. So if you have that line draw up, then I don't think that there's anything that you cannot share, because it's your line. It's not someone else's line.
Yeah.
So yeah, be
Yeah.
selective what you want to share.
Yeah. And do you think like at any point in your growth or like your trajectory here,
Mhm.
do you think that at any point will build in public not make any more sense for you?
So I think because I'm a one-man band, so and I look at myself more like a content creator, building like mini products. So a lot of my work is tied to my personal brand. If you're doing the same, I think it's okay to be like fully transparent. Like I wouldn't mind people knowing how much I make, my MRR every month from all the different products. I'm not doing it right now because I'm not even making a lot. Like
Yeah.
like I don't know if it's even 3 digits a month. So there's no point publishing it because it doesn't help me, right? So going
Yeah.
back to like, you don't have to be 100% transparent. But when it gets up to like 3,000 US MRR, 4,000, I think I would be okay to publicize that. But if I imagine myself to be a founder running like a B2B startup and I have a team of 20 people, then it becomes a very tricky way to build in public, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of narratives. 20 people in your team, and they have to look at it the same way. If you're the only one building in public as a founder, I don't think that's super effective, because your team is not following, or your team is not understanding, and then someone talk to your team and find out a different angle to the story. Like, even though the story is true, there's just so many noise around it. So I would be careful if I'm running a B2B business. I was just talking to Nicolo from Mail Brew the other day, and then he showed me that a lot of B2B company has this open metrics dashboard
Hmm.
with revenue, with like churn, MRR. And we talked about how actually at some point when you're at like let's say 500,000 revenue or 1 million revenue, that number doesn't really matter anymore. I don't think people pay so much attention. They just look at the number and be like, oh, okay, that's cool. So
Yeah.
the story angle isn't there anymore. So yeah, as a summary, I think for individual content creator, it's easy to be just like fully transparent. But if you're running a company with like a huge team, it might be a little difficult.
Yeah. And as far as like the future of build in public goes, we've kind of already talked about how there's a lot of people jumping on the bandwagon these days. A lot of people using the hashtag build in public who kind of like don't really know what they're doing. Um, what are your thoughts on the future of building in public? Like for now, it's kind of a new way to make yourself unique and do marketing. Will it become more and more diluted as time goes on and as more people hop on the bandwagon?
I think so, because it's kind of like YouTube. Like when YouTube just started, if you're like a YouTube creator, you get so much because no one is doing it. And then when everyone is making videos, it's so competitive. You have to have really good quality. So I think we're at this stage where um, I think it's still early in the movement for building in public. Like obviously there's only like a small group of people who know about this. Like most of the world don't, or they just don't know the term, but they're already doing it. But I think right now is a good time if you want to differentiate yourself, because honestly it's so competitive online. I think building in public is just a way for you to stand out using a different angle, using a different personality. But it doesn't mean you can just tweet and put in the hashtag build in public and that's building in public. No, like calling it building in public is useless. You have
Yeah.
to actually embrace it. So I would much rather you just sit down, close your laptop, reflect on your last week learnings, and just write a tweet thread or like an article and just share it without calling it building in public. And so, like just try to use that piece of content to help someone else. And that is a way to differentiate yourself. And honestly, you talk about dilution. I think just like anything else, like when more and more people do it, it will be really clear who is doing it well and who's just chasing the terms.
Yeah.
So that's why I encourage people, if you are serious about this, do it well. Why
Yeah.
half-ass it? There's no
Yeah.
point. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think you make a good point, which is that if you bring the value, like you're always going to stand out, because actually all the people who come in and dilute the thing will be like down here and you'll be like up here. So
Yeah.
you kind of don't
And
really care how many people are coming in from the bottom.
yeah. And I want to share like a crazy story, which is a best example of building in public. So I followed this guy who founded Udemy. I think his name is Gagan.
Mhm.
Now, and I found him early in my Twitter when I first started Twitter, and he was very transparent about his journey. Again, I don't think that's the full story, but doesn't matter. Like he's just sharing a lot, and I was like, wow, I love this person. And then a month later, he was like, oh, I'm starting a new company with another person, and I was like, ooh, nice. What are they building? And then a month later, they open up their angel round to the public so everyone can invest. And you know what? I just jumped in and gave them my money. So it's when you're building a transparent brand and people are establishing trust with you, when you do stuff in the future, people might just skip all those like rational buying, like how they decide what to buy, because there's an emotional attachment, and they would just like support you because of your brand. So this is a classic example of how I just gave him my money. I know it's very risky. Like I might never see my money again, but I just want to support this person.
Yeah.
So yeah, and these things are not like you cannot. There's no ROI for building in public. I don't think
Yeah.
so. But just it's your brand. It's your identity for your life.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Let's maybe like address a few of these questions. We could start with this first one by Christian. We've mostly talked about kind of Twitter and blogging. What are your thoughts on platforms like YouTube or TikTok to document building in public?
Um, I would be honest that most of my experience is on Twitter, but the way I think about it is like for TikTok, I'm not an active user of TikTok. So for me, the impression is like some fun videos, short videos. I don't know if this is the right place to build in public, because building in public is a very reflective, sharing kind of oriented content. I don't know if you can do it there, but YouTube definitely, because there's so many YouTubers. You know what videos they create? They create build behind the scenes, and they create like thoughts kind of video. That's building in public.
Mhm.
So I remember this guy called Ali, who's a big YouTuber, makes a lot of money, and he had this one video just outlining all his income from 2020. To me, on one hand, it's a marketing, is a topic that would drive him a lot of views. But on the other hand, he's being transparent. So that is also building in public. So I think at the end of the day, the platform doesn't really matter. If your audience is there and you're happy to share the behind the scenes, just do it.
Yeah. I know you've dabbled in YouTube, and he'll tell me not to tell you to go search for his YouTube videos. Um, but so you've dabbled with YouTube. Is there a reason why, like, would you ever think about going back and like trying YouTube again? with the learnings that you've picked up about building in public and like the strategies?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, 3 years ago, I tried out YouTube, but I can tell you, I was very naive. I was making lifestyle video. So I was filming a lot of parenting videos, not even with my kid. I borrow kids from my cousins. So we would take care of them for one day and film the whole day.
Oh my
The
goodness.
thing about those kind of video is you don't, like, I wasn't clear who my audience is. I wasn't clear who I'm helping. But now, like, I'm actually planning to do more videos.
Cool.
The main reason is like my writing content can help certain kind of people, but you can imagine there are people who don't like to read; they like to consume via video. So I think I have to get on video, but this time not lifestyle video. This time it will be legit content, like building a public, growing Twitter audience, like this kind of stuff. Um, and I
Yeah.
think it's easier for me because back then when I filmed those lifestyle video, I was not being myself. I was trying
Yeah.
to act like a YouTube person, a YouTube personality. But now I realize it doesn't matter as long as you are talking into the camera, sharing good stuff. People would watch it. So I'm
Yeah,
gonna
for
I'm
sure.
gonna start again. Yeah.
Cool. Looking forward to that. Yeah, yeah. I know you've been starting to experiment with that in our in the public lab community. So
Yeah. Yeah.
it's cool. Let's see. There's a question from Shiwen. Will you
Mhm.
recommend building your own community from scratch or joining an existing community and getting active there so that it sort of becomes your community as people recognize you and know you there? I think you addressed this in your guide, but maybe you want to just address it here.
I I want to know, like, what's the goal there. If it's just being part of a community, I would strongly recommend don't build your own because I'm building one and I can tell you it's not easy. Like a lot of people think you can just register a platform, put people in, and then that's it. No, it's not. If you're running like a tech product, it's easy. It's like as long as you satisfy people's need, they would stay and use your tool, right? But when you're running a community, you're dealing with people and people change every single day and you need to make them happy. So it's really hard. So I think if your goal is just to be around like-minded people, join a community. For me, I joined Indie Hackers um, to kick off everything because I feel that I can really connect with those people there. So you just need to find your own. Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. Um, let's see, there's a question about, okay, so I think David's question, which communities, makers, and guides would you recommend to a dev who wants to get more involved in building public? I would just, you can just check out the guide. And I think on the last, like one of the last chapters, like is just a list of resources. So go to the guide and check that out. There's a question by Santosh about building momentum, distribution, etc. How do you get audience to actually pay attention to what you're writing?
How do you get audience to pay attention?
I feel like I know what your answer is going to be, but
Really?
which is just
Okay. I just think, to be honest, there's no rocket science to that. If you are serving the right content to the right audience, then people are going to pay attention. So most of the time when you feel like, how come no one's reading it? How come no one is retweeting it? It's either is the content is solving the wrong, it's the problem, the content is not top of their mind, it's not helping them, or you're talking to the wrong people. So I hope that I have like some hacky rocket science way to answer this, but I think it's just simple as that.
yeah.
Yeah.
How would you recommend like um, finding your audience?
Finding your audience.
So
So
so let's say like we write something like no one, you know, no one's reading it, no one's engaging with it. So probably like our audience is not, we're not in the right place. Um, what
Yeah.
do you have any like tips for like how to identify your audience
Yeah.
or like where they are?
Yeah. There's a, I think there's a lot of science behind it. For example, if I've seen a lot of people do this, you write a blog post and then you copy the link and post on Twitter as a link, and that pulls up the meta image and the title. And I can tell you, no one's gonna click on that on Twitter, because you need to understand like human psychology. When people are on Twitter, they're reading their feed. No one wants to get out of the platform, especially when you never explain what that piece of content does.
Yeah.
So if you want to be a bit smarter in that, is don't, first of all, don't paste the link of your article. Second of all, maybe don't even hope that they would go to your website. You transform your article into a tweet thread and just so that people can stay on Twitter while consuming your content. So as you can see, like it's just a different way of exposing your content, which will make a huge difference. So it's small things like this that can help you a lot. But first, you need to understand from the other side of the table how people like to consume.
Yeah.
Yeah.
No, yeah, definitely. I see you doing that a lot, which is like kind of taking your like long form blog post, transform it into a tweet thread that's like just the
Yeah.
key points. And so
Yeah.
is kind of the conversion funnel that you're creating, like people see these threads, people like start getting to know, okay, Kevon, he's like really good at these subjects. He's like the go-to guy. And then they kind of go over to your blog. Or like, how do you see people kind of like converting into email subscribers if that's the goal? I don't know.
Obviously, I'm still learning about this, but I think my learning is if you're new to marketing, you might look at your funnel like a linear funnel, like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'm going to use Twitter to get people to go to my blog. And then
Yeah,
when they read it, they will subscribe to my newsletter.
yeah.
But
You
as I
can tell
meant,
I'm new.
but as I mentioned, is how do you get people off Twitter to go to your blog? That's a huge friction for most
Yeah,
people. So the way I look at it is that each channel you're using, like Twitter, should have its own strategy. Like your strategy is not that linear funnel. Like Twitter, you can let people get value just on Twitter, and that means you get followers, right? When you get followers, once in a while you can post your link, and because people already know that you have valuable content, that would be a way to like overcome that hurdle for them to click on the link, because they know you as a person. You're not like a random stranger.
mm-hmm.
But ultimately, if if you can just stay focused on like creating a lot of value on Twitter itself, some people are gonna look at your bio or your pinned tweet and be like, oh, I love the content from Kevon, and oh, he's creating a new community. That's the pinned tweet. So let me check that out. So
Yeah,
yeah, don't think about each tweet is like a linear funnel, but like just
yeah,
try to create a lot and hope that those spillover effect will kick in for you.
yeah.
I don't know if I explained it well, but yeah.
No, I think you explained it pretty well. Sanjay was pleased with your answer. So um, let's see. Are there other questions that we haven't gotten to? I think on my list, I'm out of questions. Um, but let's see. What else is interesting about building in public? Um,
I think David has a question. Which communities, makers, and guides would you recommend to a
oh
dev who
yeah,
wants to get more involved in building public?
yeah,
Communities, I would say definitely indie hackers, because the fact that they have a group called Building in Public shows that a lot of people there care about it. So I think just being there, learning from each other, that's a great start. Um, I would mention my public lab community because it's
Yeah.
dedicated to building in public. So everyone there is quite passionate about this. Makers, I don't know. I can send you a few. I'll just mark down your name and then maybe I'll tweet that to you. I cannot come up with names top of my head. So David, I'll get back to you.
Cool. Let's see. Is there anything else that we haven't covered here? I'm gonna open up our
Anyone want to
yeah.
ask a question like live,
Yeah, maybe live.
verbally? Everyone has their camera shut.
Here, I'll ask one here.
Sure.
How do you deal with imposter syndrome? This is from Shiwen.
Oh.
Do you have it?
Yeah, of course. For example, right now, like I think Dennis, you saw my tweet just now. The difficulty of running a live community. How do you deal with imposter syndrome? I think when you set a big goal for yourself, let's say I want to build this product, I want to build this video course. Sometimes the journey to that goal is so far away. And I think that will bring out the imposter syndrome because you just cannot see the destination, the timeline and everything. So for me, I think because of building in public, I'm chopping everything up into so small, like smaller pieces. And I am kind of picking up data points from the internet to tell me what to work on. When it's so small and you're gonna achieve it in 1 or 2 weeks, I think the imposter syndrome is gonna go away because honestly, what's there to afraid? Like your effort for 2 weeks is gonna go nowhere. Who cares? Like it happens. So yeah, I think just make smaller goals. Like a lot of people seems to like to focus on like, oh, I want to achieve blah, blah, blah by end of 2021. Honestly, I don't even think more than a month later right now. Like
Yeah.
I'm just really focused on what's the next thing that can move the needle. For me right now is to make the community so good that people want to be in it. And then when I achieve that point, I'll think about the next thing. I don't overwhelm myself too much.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. No, it's good advice. So it's 4:01 a.m. here. I think it's probably time for bed. One very last question to end on a light note here. Yihui asked, do you like pineapples on pizza?
Wait, what?
Yihui asks you, do you like pineapples on pizza?
Where are these questions coming from? I didn't see it. Pineapple or pizza?
Yeah, people could submit questions when they joined, when they signed up.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
What about Hawaiian pizza? It has both.
Yeah,
Honestly,
exactly.
I'm not a big fan of pineapple. So that picture is a false personality.
I think that's called false marketing.
False marketing. Oh my God.
Being dishonest.
Oh my God. But Dennis used the photo. I didn't pick it. So
you approved it. So yeah, so everyone
whatever.
knows Kevon is actually really into broccoli. So he's actually the broccoli dude. I recommend everyone, if this is stuff that interests you, like go and follow Kevon on Twitter, read his guide. Like there's like so much more to like dig into the subject. His guide and his blog are like excellent resources. So thanks for joining us, man. It was fun.
Yeah.
It was fun chatting with you.
Well, thanks for having me. I mean, if anyone here want to continue the conversation, definitely happy to do it. I see David has another question. I'm gonna answer you separately. So thanks for having me here. Have a great Friday and weekend.
Yeah. Thanks
Thanks,
everyone.
Kevon. It was
Thank
very
you so much,
awesome.
Ron. Thank you, Dennis. Thanks, Richard.
Bye bye.
Thanks.